Welcome to Dream Pushers. We connect you with Web3's vanguard, creators and entrepreneurs shaping the future. Hosted by Chris Jonu and presented by Draper University.
I want to quickly mention that none of this is investment advice or financial advice, trading advice, or any sort of advice. And we do not recommend any cryptocurrency or investing in any projects. We're just showcasing the stories of founders. Welcome back, Dream Pushers podcast. This is Chris Jonu. And today we have Dinis Guarda, prominent entrepreneur, author, and influencer, particularly in all this kind of future tech, digital transformation, blockchain, AI, emerging technologies. And I had the pleasure of being on his YouTube channel and podcast a few weeks back. And yeah, he's a superstar. I mean, he's got over 1 million followers across his channel. So a lot of people tuning in. He is the founder and CEO of Zadium, a leading digital transformation AI company, the CEO of BlocksDNA, and a blockchain-based AI platform for digital identity verification. And he's also founded several companies, including Humanic, a blockchain-based banking platform for the unbanked, and Intelligent HQ, a social business network and media platform. He's also a big author and one of the most influential people in blockchain, according to Rise Global and CryptoCoin.news. I love having a conversation with him. I think you'll enjoy the interview. Cheers. Dinis, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Very well. It's an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to chat with you today. Obviously, quite a bit to cover. You have like a lot going on and quite an impressive background. I might just start with a little bit of background, bit of context for the audience. And I usually start with the question, was there a mother or father that was an entrepreneur? So that's how far back I'm going to go.
Fantastic. I love the question. Yes, definitely. There's a father entrepreneur, and I grew up in a small business. So definitely for me, I think being an entrepreneur was kind of the only way I saw life. And I actually only had a corporate job in my life. So I was always an entrepreneur. And even during the time that I was a corporate, I was as well doing my own stuff. So definitely I was always an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think the term is completely unemployable.
Yeah, well, I think everyone in the world going for in that way.
Exactly. And then how, what was the education? Well, perhaps maybe you can just talk a little bit about your background, maybe pinpoint the first time, you can remember selling baseball cards or whatever it was for you,
No, thank you so much. No, I think education was always my passion since I was a child. So I was actually educated. I had quite a privileged education. I was educated in religious schools, but I think I got the best out of that. Normally people get traumatized. In my case, I had very good experience. I actually got good examples and role models. And I think my first experience as an entrepreneur was creating a magazine when I was 12 years old, precisely in the school. So I created a magazine for the school, and it was actually in the wall, and we put like articles and so forth. And I became, as well, I started managing the association of students and involved on that in activities and so forth. And then in the universities when I became really a serial entrepreneur. So in the university, actually, I studied at the University of Lisbon, and where I did my studies. And I became a bit in and out because I really didn't finish complete university, but I finished my master. Ironically, I think it was just a couple of disciplines to finish the university, but then I went up to a master in London, and in the master, of course, I finished and I did the master. And after the master, I did a lot of other studies like blockchain in the University of Oxford. I did my master in the London South Bank University, and then in Oxford, the blockchain, and I've been doing a lot of other things. But I think definitely my entrepreneurial experience started when I created my first organization when I was 18, 19. And it was an organization related. Actually, I started a magazine, really official magazine that became quite famous in terms of Portugal and France and the activities. At the time, there was still not internet, it was pre-internet. And it was a magazine of arts, culture, and actually ideas, reflection about what they're doing here. It became quite impactful in the university academic world. And then I created the second and the third, and my third was a numero magazine that became actually quite famous in terms of the art in a very niche ecosystem. And then after that, I created a festival. So I actually start inviting very high profile personalities around the world to a festival of music, film, and media.
Very cool.
And actually, I had probably my light bringing. I was actually supposed to bring the Palanu, the guy from the Fight Club, and actually end up getting Patti Smith. And then the rest is history. I worked with the guys from Depeche Mode and so forth. So I did a lot of interesting things. And then I went hardcore in terms of technology.
Let's dig in a bit there, right? Because I wanted, when we would chat in on the way before we started about like, obviously blockchain, the premise of the show is about Web3, and I'm lucky enough that I get kind of have the ability to talk to people like yourself and learn on the job, right? Which is great. But I'd love to hear that. And then obviously the AI bit. As I'm like uncovering and chatting with you, there's so much that you're doing around with cities ABC and Metaverse ABC and a lot of virtual reality and Metaverse stuff. I'll kind of start with the question, not too dissimilar to my question about your first entrepreneurial moment. What I've been using as a common thread in this podcast is around, can you remember the time where you just realized that blockchain technology was like the future?
Yeah. I think actually I was probably one of the first people in the world writing about blockchain. And actually, I remember my first experience with when I started really studying Bitcoin, when there was the paper of Bitcoin. And then I remember that I started researching how it would work, but I was always more interested in actually the technology than actually on the speculative part of it. I was actually, it was my only corporate job when actually Bitcoin paper came in 2009, 10. And I remember that I started looking at it and I started, okay, the technology is really cool. And then I decided to build at the time, I was already building websites and I was actually building a big trading platform at the time. It was actually with a big investment bank. And I said, okay, why don't we put some kind of more advanced technology? And when I start looking at this, okay, this is really very interesting. And then I start researching. I start actually, at the time I met actually Don Scott. And then one person in my team actually ironically wrote about Ethereum, actually when Ethereum was a baby. And I started talking with the person and I said, okay, Rail, this is going to be much bigger. Then I started really getting hardcore into blockchain. And I started understanding it from a perspective of foundational technology, not so much from, of course, I actually created my first project on building a Bitcoin dashboard for data was in 2011, 2012. And I remember that everyone told me, okay, if you're someone in the city of London, I was involved in fintech and I was coming from a bank. If anyone in the city of London knows that you are in crypto, you are done. And I said, okay, let me focus on the blockchain. I kept doing it, but I thought, okay, this is a bit radical. But ironically, I remember 2012, then I really started writing hardcore about it, 2014, 15. That was when actually, especially blockchain became really at least a thing. And Ethereum immediately, I did I actually helped the Ethereum meetup London in the beginning. Actually, I interviewed as well Vitalik, and I collaborated a bit with Dan Scott. So became something of a natural stuff. And actually, my book that came at the time was precisely my book that was launched was after that. But I did actually 10 ICOs where I was involved, but there was a big one where I was actually the first ICO in 2015, 16. It was Humanique. This is my book, 4AR, my last one. And one of the things I realized was, okay, this is going to be a big thing and I want to be part of it, but I want as well to create awareness about it. So I created the blockchainage.com at the time. I actually wrote a lot of things in our website, intelligentisgood.com, which actually had some of the articles you can see. Some of them became viral at the time. And yeah, since then I've been on blockchain all the time. And actually, at the moment we are in blockchain 2.0, let's put it that way, Web 3. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And I'm a huge fan of Tim Draper. Actually, I asked for advice for him 4 years ago or something like that to an event. And he actually gave me very good advice. And I was speaking actually the same event with him and his son. And I think it's more about how you take this from the theory to the practice. And that's what I'm trying to do with everything I'm doing. Having an academic research side, more a research side, because I've been teaching in business schools as well. Actually, I created a couple of courses about blockchain, but as well a practical side. So I like the two things together.
What was the question you asked Tim, just out of curiosity?
It was about the product that I was building, actually blockchain product. And it was actually quite interesting because he actually helped it blow my mind because he was very generous in the way he actually answered to that. Because it was a project that actually became a big IP for my company. But he told me, okay, keep building the IP, but actually focus on reaching as much people as possible. And I think that shows as well this capacity. But he actually helped me a lot in looking at the product from a perspective of a focus as an entrepreneur as well.
Very cool. Very cool. And so you've got Fashion ABC, you've got the kind of, I would say, maybe the agency or kind of the enterprise consulting in the space. You got the Open Business Council, you're trying to help kind of onboard enterprise there too, and I guess do your part for open business, right? And kind of how you want the future of the internet to look. What was next and how did it evolve? And then was it just other kind of pain points you were seeing in the industry that made you feel compelled to keep diversifying? I'd love to hear how it kind of all unfolded.
Yeah, it's I think sometimes it's one of my strengths and weakness. I love to look and research, and then I come up with a lot of projects and a lot of ideas. I'm an idiot on that level. But I think in the sense of, I think mostly I try to solve problems. So for instance, openbusinesscouncil.org, it was created because I was working and writing a lot of things about business and education, fintech and blockchain. And then I had actually one of the major banks in the world that came to us and said, I want to work with your website. It was at the time intelligenthq.com, which was my biggest media that I created. And it's still one of the top 100,000 websites in the world. And he asked me, okay, how can your content is great, but it's too sophisticated. And I asked the guys, but this is not academic. I am an academic. This is not academic. It's actually very simple to listen. And no, most of the SMEs have no clue. And I was looking at them, and then I started really doing research, and I found out, oh my God, it's true. Most of the SMEs, so 90% of the SMEs worldwide don't have a website. 70%, for instance, in the UK, where I'm based, which is the sixth economy in the world, 60 to 70% don't have a website. And then there's a very basic stuff is if I do a business with you in Australia, and if I don't know about your company or any company about you, it's a nightmare to understand if your company exists, what is the regulation, what is the number of the company, what is the address, and all this basic stuff. So I said, okay, let's create a wiki for businesses. That is Open Business Council. But then let's put it a blockchain certification. And that's Open Business Council. Of course, in much more things. At the moment, we are onboarding 1.2 million companies. We're working with governments, with UK government, India, and so forth, and a lot of chambers of commerce. And the idea was digitize business, creating a wiki kind of the minimum dashboard for them, then giving a marketplace where actually they can interact with them. And actually solving a problem that I have when I do business with people around the world. It's very difficult to find this. And the same goes with Cities ABC, which is our second biggest platform. Is mostly I was working with Malaysia government, not far from there, where you are in Australia. And I was actually looking at Kuala Lumpur, and I was building Kuala Lumpur Tech City. And I start looking at, there's no data for cities. Even the number of population of cities changes according to Wikipedia page. The United Nations is always like 3-4 years late. And then I said, okay, let's create a website that is a wiki for cities, but then actually has other layers. And that's the problem that I'm solving. And I'm really focused on that. And as well, the same with Web3s. My point is that when you go to city, for instance, I was in Paris the last days. And actually I was in Louvre, of course, with family. And actually even Louvre with the Nintendo device they have, which I pay €4 to have it. If I want to go through the museum, it doesn't show me the journey. I have to pick, and it doesn't make any sense. I can have an app with Google Map of stuff, but even Louvre doesn't show that. And I said, okay, let's put the cities on the Metaverse. That's what we do at Cities ABC create. And that's why we created the Metaverse ABC.tech, that is mostly a tech to solve problems of not just using Web3 and Metaverse to go in the direction of just getting another speculative park, which have nothing against speculation and trading, but let's focus in more education and much more about creating real experience for cities. And that's what we do. And actually, ironically, it became a huge success, although we didn't put most of the stuff public, but we are working with big countries and cities. At the moment, we're working with Dubai and Istanbul and a lot of other cities. And the idea is actually, I want to put all the cities in the world in Metaverse experience, but not in the sense of creating another thing for people to speculate and sell land that is not from them. No, it's more in the sense, okay, At the end of the day, there's reality and there's the physical. I'm already in Google Maps and Google Earth, but Google Earth doesn't show me the way it goes, and it's difficult to look at a lot of different things. And Google did a fantastic work. Just go a step ahead and using the technology of all time to solve problems. And that's what we're doing. So mostly these two platforms are the aggregator of everything we're doing. And behind that, we build a lot of IP that actually could, a bit what you guys are doing with Tim Draper University, the fund and things. And that I really actually is one of my models that I can see in public with a lot of respect and honor. And I think that's what we're trying to do, solving problems that really need to be solved. And at the same time, keeping a research component, an education component, and mixing the two things. And that's what I've been doing all my life.
Incredible, right? And these are not small undertakings, which is good. It's great. That's what we want, the big projects, right? Not the ones that anyone can do. And so, like, what are some of the benefits, right? I'm just trying to think, obviously you got that Louvre example, but I'd love to hear some of the cities or the countries have been saying and what changed that helped them. And I'd love to dive a little bit deeper and hopefully get a few more countries ringing your doorbell.
No, my goal is to put the entire cities in the planet. There's around 10,000 cities in the world that represents around 80% of the economy of the planet. And most of the cities have very little digital presence. Even if I travel around the world very frequent. I'm traveling this month. I think I went already 3 times flying. So I've been spending more time actually traveling than actually in my own house. And one of the things I found out is that when you go to a new city or when you go to any new place, it's really difficult. For instance, even Istanbul that I'm starting to know quite well, I very easily, if I go to booking.com and I do it wrong, if I'm in a rush or if someone in my team doesn't really well, I might end up actually in a very crazy place of the city. For instance, I remember actually in Switzerland, that actually was my wife that booked an hotel, and it was in the red light district. I didn't even knew that Zurich had a red light district. And then suddenly I was, oh my God, I just went out and I had all the flamboyance of having that. Not that I have anything about that, but it was even in Zurich, okay, which is kind of so these things, if you just have like a very basic Web3 kind of immersive experience of the city, at least you know where you're going to stay. And I think this can actually solve a lot of problems, from violence to, of course, there's a lot of issues as well. We can see if you go in kind of the negative part of it, if you use it for the wrong way. So my idea is actually on these projects, what we're trying to do is mostly create a narrative that actually can actually improve the world in that area. And I think I have a genuine ambitions on that level. But at the same time, doing a lot of partnerships. I think you mentioned about the goals here is that, for instance, on Open Business Council, we've been, I think, especially at the moment, we have around 30 to 50 MOUs signed with chambers of commerce worldwide. And it's been overwhelming. Okay, at the moment, the point is that we become too big for the funding that we have. From a reach, a digital reach is becoming massive, but actually any chamber of commerce wants to have. So we decided not to go directly to the companies, but the chambers of commerce. For instance, let me give an example. PhD Chamber of Commerce in India that is 120 years old. It's one of the oldest chambers of commerce in the world. And for us, they have 150,000 companies. So bringing these companies to the platform, digitizing, creating a wiki page for them, creates a massive volume and utility for them. But at the same time, creates a lot of, and then for us, ironically, they've been asking, can we create a blockchain certification for the companies? So that's great. So at the end of the day, it's using the blockchain technology to solve specific problems, not trying to go in 20 different directions. Is one problem is this company exists. Here it is a smart contract NFT certification that tells this company exists. It's a simple thing, but this is a massive thing. It doesn't exist. You don't have anything in the world that's around so from the old world economy, there's only around 90 countries, 90 something that have like kind of like a company's house where you actually can see the companies. But these APIs are broken. Even if I search my own companies in London, I have to go to Google, get out of the company's house, then get in, because the company's house of the UK is not optimized even for search. So I'm talking of solving multi-trillion-dollar business problems with blockchain technology. And this is for me where the blockchain technology needs to aim, more than just creating another coin, which I'm guilty because I create a couple of coins myself. But you know what I mean? It's mostly creating solutions that can solve problems. And the same with Web3. I think more than just creating, okay, that's great gaming. For instance, my daughter has been my biggest educator in terms of Web3 because she spends hours and hours, and she's only 9, in Roblox. And I start, oh my God, this is already here.
Same. My
So you have
daughters.
the same stuff. So, and the thing is, they are the best teachers. Okay, at the end of the day, they are the ones that will teach us, not us with our crazy layers of technology and knowledge. But yeah, that's 500 million children, teenagers on Web3 every day, and they are putting avatars with clothes. For us, 15% of the world economy in fashion and trends will be digital. So this is actually official numbers. Okay, this is happening. Okay, so the point is how we can actually help this happen, not in the speculative part, and not so much in the meta. I admire a lot Mark Zuckerberg, but I think meta is taking things more for the Ready Player One, and I believe much more in terms of immersive experience, like Star Trek narrative. Is easier to explain to everyone that doesn't know about this.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it was like the conversation in San Francisco. Oh, metaverse slowing down. All that. I'm like, well, Roblox is a metaverse. Like that doesn't slow down a bit. Fortnite, same kind of thing.
Exactly, sandbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 500 to 600 million. Yeah, 500 to 600 million people every day. So it's already 10% of the world population. So it's going to be much bigger. So it's in the end of the day, I don't have, and actually probably is going to reach 1 billion if you put all the gaming experiences, because they're already immersive. Okay. And as well, partly Google, for instance, Google right now start doing great stuff that is when we are in a city, especially if it's a big city like Paris, they put like a video immersive of like a 3D of the city, which is very cool. The point is that it's still not in the Google map. And that's what I'm trying to do with Cities ABC, is immersing these things. And I believe that this is where we need to use. I'm not about the hype. Of course, as an investor and as an entrepreneur, we need to look at the investment side. But there's no doubt this is going to, and that's actually why JP Morgan said that it's going to be in 2030 a $15 trillion economy. And I believe it's going to be bigger.
Absolutely. I guess continuing with the kind of Tim Draper theme, I suppose, like a lot of, I'd say like the magic from the Draper ecosystem has been that almost inspiration from science fiction and thinking that kind of far ahead and betting on the long shots. I'm just curious, is this something that's also like been interesting to you? Because obviously this is really, it's not that far-fetched now. It's very practical and all that, but I'm just curious as to where you gain your inspiration in putting these things together.
Well, it's people like Tim. Tim has been one of my influences and role models. I think I love the fact that he actually is focusing on education. He's very generous at this time. He speaks in all the conferences around the world. And as well, I think if you go to Draper University, the first thing you have is the hero journey, which is about the hero, about being an entrepreneur and the hero training. And I believe that it's about role models and mentors. I think actually one of the things that I taught actually for the last, I think 12 years or something like that. I stopped in the last 2 years. I don't have time, but I do a lot of coaching and I do guest lectures. For instance, I was actually last month or 2 months ago, I was in India, in the kind of the MIT of India. And actually, what I always get surprised is that my students are less digital than I am. And that gets me crazy because they spend 5 hours on the web per day. Actually, everyone spends 5 to 6 hours and they don't know anything about the web. They don't know anything about digital. And that part gets me scared because, of course, that's why Google and all of these big players got big as they are, because people don't really understand how to make money on this. So I think this kind of hero expertise, and I think these role models like the Draper University are really very important. And I think especially the programs that you guys have been making, I really something that is important. Entrepreneurship is really important. And I think the way you work on these things, the way you actually make the bridge between the different areas, for me, is where we actually can make a better society and actually can make business, because this is serious business. And I think I've been, ironically, as an entrepreneur, I've been doing all the mistakes. I created a bank. I didn't know how to protect myself. I lost 3% of the bank, which could be actually $100 million. I could be 10 times wealthier than I am right now. And even in my ICOs, I left 2 ICOs because, or actually tokens, one of them that reached $100 million because I didn't believe in my board and I was not prepared. So if I would have this kind of, because my university didn't prepare me for ideas, ironically, and first when I did my master, ironically, I had 3 mentors, 3 orienters, because none of them understood what they all were talking. And I was talking about the internet, ideas, and literature and poetry. And they were, what the hell is this? Okay, internet, they didn't got it even at the time, but mixing literature and ideas and all the stuff. And that's where you have to focus. And that's why podcasts are really cool, because you learn a lot. I learned more in podcasts and ebooks and audiobooks than I actually learn in my university. Of course, I learn other things that are important, but it's a big, and actually that's one of the things when I was teaching, I taught in Copenhagen Business School. I created, for instance, a program, but actually every kind of my guest lectures would have a company coming. So I got Google, Nordics, and all these big companies coming because it's key. And actually, I had 50 to 60 students, and I know that I marked them a bit because at least I made them think, okay, there's an academic part, there's a component of real world entrepreneurship, and that part is completely missing on the education systems. And I think it's a key element for the Web3, because if you don't get this right, you definitely can create zombies. And I think especially with AI, within Touch AI, I've been evolving more and more into AI, although I come from my background is actually language and literature, and then media, and then technology. So, and what I've been learning is, at the end of the day, AI is about ideas, and it's about how you apply these ideas into data, and how you put the data to learn, and how the data learns, and then you start putting in. I'm becoming a lot into robotics as well. It's really critical because at the moment you can create superhumans. For instance, I can right now, if I put my social media knowledge on the top, plus some of the tools that our team has been building in terms of digital twins and manipulation of data, we can do a lot of damage. Actually, I interviewed, for instance, one of the whistleblowers of the Cambridge Analytica, and everything that happened last years is kind of completely, well, I think people like you and me know that it's very easily to do, unfortunately. But I believe that you can do it for other things, like what Tim Draper is doing, a lot of other people. And that's what makes me wake up very excited every day.
And so, I mean, on the kind of, I guess, the education stuff, right? And then and I want to definitely touch on AI, right? I imagine there's an education process in the selling, or there's like people reaching out to you and saying, hey, I need a digital twin or whatever, I need to be on an open platform, but they don't know what they want. They just think they need it. I'm curious as to how are we in safe hands? Are there cities that you find that are well ahead and they kind of get what you're on about? They like want to learn more about AI, or I'm just curious what that sales process looks like in your experience with government.
Yeah, very good question. I would say that the first direct answer is no. No one has a clue. Everyone has a kind of department that is doing this, and then we come to reality, zero. And I'm not going to mention even the ones that are promoting themselves. What I try to do here is creating a narrative that is simple for them to understand. So I think when it comes to Metaverse, there's a fear of missing right now. And then there's the fear of missing, or then the panic of, okay, but this can actually create bad things for us. And for us, what I'm trying to do, for instance, I was in Egypt and we work in a massive project with Egypt. And to be honest, what I do is I shift, because they were afraid of NFTs, they were afraid of crypto, and I shift, to explain that, okay, this is an immersive experience, and then they got it. And then we use blockchain to certify things. And I think it's more about, I think the narrative sometimes is that we have people that create a narrative that creates fear. And I think it's a big important thing, because if in the end of the day, there's only 350 million people in the world that are touching crypto. Let's be realistic, okay? It's less than actually Metaverse technology, even less than probably even people using devices at the moment, especially in kinds of VR and so forth. So it's very small people, okay? Of course, it just in 2020 was actually less, it was 150 million. And they actually more than double in 1 year. So if you continue doubling, we might go to 700 million people, but the crypto winter right now didn't really make it easier right now. But in one end, it's good because there was all this kind of craziness about everyone is going to be millionaire with Bitcoin. No, Bitcoin is great, and Tim has been on this from the beginning. Is more in the sense of, no, it's about using it as what makes Bitcoin so special is the technology. Okay, it's an algorithm that is very difficult. No one actually manages to hack it. And because of that, it keeps mining and it keeps creating a new a new part, and that is the blockchain technology capacity. That is the magic of what these things are happening. Is mostly solving solutions. Because I did a video research about the history of ledgers, and if you look at the history of ledgers, the first ones probably are 7,000 years ago in the Syrian Persian Empire. There was mostly creating ledgers for agriculture. They were already there. So in the end of the day, we're creating ledgers, and it's still the biggest technology of our times is still paper. Governments are spending 50, for instance, Dubai, these numbers came from someone in Dubai, they spend 70 million pounds per year or is around 70 to 80 million euros or more, and buying paper for certifications. Why the hell we need a paper certification in our times? I have my certification from the university, but I could have just have a certification digital from my master. So it's this kind of things that actually can solve so much problems. And I believe that this component of education, the component of taking forward this spirit, and I think when it comes to cities, this is even more flagrant because most of the cities are bankrupt. Most of them. People won't speak about it. Secondly, most of the people running cities are people really like us that really try to do their best, but they are running between the professional people and then the political. And the problem is that the professional people are doing really great work, and the political, as you know, is what it is. And reality is much more complex than technology. So I believe that just through education and through examples, case studies, and that's what I'm doing when I go to a new city. I sometimes don't care about the money because I know that if I get, for instance, Istanbul, it's officially 17 to 18 million people. But if you put on the top of that the visitants and the university students, it's 25 million people, which is one of the biggest cities in the world. So in the end of the day, whatever solution we can create for Istanbul, we're actually creating a solution for the world. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do, is making sure that these solutions can actually create new layers that can actually help us all. And as well as a city that I live in, London, which is my city, but I think a lot of things can happen from security, from surveillance, in a good way, not in the bad way. So I think that's what I'm trying to do with the cities that I'm working with, and very concrete solutions. For instance, you mentioned before the interview, we were talking about, for instance, creating a campus for universities where actually can go get certification, get case studies from other students with an immersive experience. It's a much bigger difference. And if I want to go and do a service or creating even my own startup, and I have an immersive experience that helps me to create another startup or another SME, but I have a mentor or I have a case study, there's a big difference. And actually it will help me a lot. So just putting small videos of my immersive experience of some kind of these parts, it can actually change the lives. And I did that, for instance, I'll finish on this level, is I did a case study in one of the poorest countries in Africa. That was actually my first blockchain big scale project. That was to create a fintech blockchain app for the biggest cooperative, financial inclusion, biggest cooperative in Mauritania. And we actually managed to do everything without any corruption. The app still exists and everything else. The challenge we had is that the country didn't have any digital transformation tools in terms of financial. So they thought blockchain like magic would solve the problem. I said, no, we can create the app, but you need to have still the digital part. But during the process, we created a fintech revolution. And mostly it was through an education. I actually I spoke about the importance of creating fintech challenges and blockchain challenges, and slowly they start doing it. And that moment they have entrepreneurs, they have universities speaking about that. And it was mostly just talking about it and creating awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, I'd say Africa, I'd say pioneering blockchain space in a lot of ways. We have a lot of startups coming through, particularly in fintech, right? I really love what you're saying. And it's really great to see your passion, by the way, and just that this means a lot to you and that we have, great people out there trying to solve problems. What is next, right? Because the cities have the technology there. I have this new kind of way of exploring the world. I have this new definition of online to offline. I would say, am I in the real world? Am I in the, as the fidelity gets better? What's next, right? How do you see, I guess the word is interoperability, but what's next after we have all the kind of infrastructure as you plan it in place and we have these advantages? How does it evolve?
It's a good question.
It's a big question.
Yeah. No, that's what I do normally in my podcast. I do too much big questions, but I think that's the idea. First of all, just looking at the big question, you're already solving a problem. Okay. And I think just the fact that we ask the question, it's the key element right now. Okay. I think the point right now is we need to ask these questions and then cut it in pieces and start putting an action on it. That's the first thing. And that's what I try to do with my technology and as well my work as a researcher and author. Actually, my next book, Metaverse NFTs Uprising, I actually keep delaying it because actually it was supposed to be done last year. And right now it's already with 500 pages. But the point right now is that I'm going to give it mostly for free. But I think the first thing is create awareness of these things, because we have a kind of a paradox right now. In one end, people like you and me are here on Zoom and this fantastic podcast and at Draper University. But we are 0.1% of the world. Okay, most of the people are struggling, but ironically, even the people that are struggling in any country in Africa. For instance, I remember that when I built the project for Africa, the first thing I tried to do was I went to the place where people were, and fishermen, people from agriculture and so forth, and everyone was using WhatsApp to communicate. They were in the sea fishing. Then they send a message, okay, we picked this quantity of fish. And then they send a message, and then they would come and sell the fish to the people. Even in the most remote places of Africa, it was working. So, and they normally have two phones, one phone for phone people because the electricity is not so good. And the second phone that would be a more advanced, like kind of very basic. I actually bought the phones like this kind of basic phone that actually still has the capacity, like an Android phone that has the capacity to send message and do some more interaction in terms of web. And ironically, they all have two. And we're talking about not sophisticated people, academics, like people in agriculture and so forth. And I was really very excited. So I think this point right now, these people are mostly, so there's 7 to 8 billion people in the world. And ironically, 60%, around 60% are 20 years old. So these guys are highly technology driven. They have no future in terms of narrative. That's the biggest challenge we have. And this is where I think no one is speaking about this. Of course, the climate change is massive. But the first thing is let's create narrative for these people. Because in the end of the day, you can talk about climate change, how difficult it is. But if you don't have a narrative about, okay, what am I going to do? And like you said, everyone will be jobless because the kind of jobs for life don't exist anymore. And actually, we're lucky because we are in the Western world. You are in Australia, I'm in UK, and Portuguese, French. So I have privileged education and so forth. Although I don't come from a wealthy family, but I managed to do everything I want. If I grew up in Africa, okay, my narrative will be, okay, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do? So, and the same with not just Africa, it's still in Asia. Most of the population of the world is in Asia, okay, between Pakistan and Bangladesh and so forth. These people are really our future. At the end of the day, whatever we want or not, we're going to be the old. Europe is old, US is becoming old, Japan is super old. So I think it's more about the narrative. So I think the next part is how we use, but these technologies can become like a cyberpunk dystopian world, like 2000, like Blade Runner. Or I believe that you can create a bit more of a Star Trek narrative. And actually, I've been actually looking at narratives of fiction, and the hero journey is very important. Like you guys have the hero entrepreneurship course. It's very important, but as well the mentorship. You can make a lot of difference with small things. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to create a business that is sustainable. I'm doing a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying to learn with my mistakes and learning with people like Tim and other people. But I think especially the narrative is the most important thing, and actually the solutions. Because it's like, for instance, what I learned with my daughter, you mentioned Roblox is $40 billion economy. $40 billion. It's actually bigger than some economies in Africa. And it's just the beginning. And it's 10 years old. It's very old. It's not like a startup that actually appeared yesterday. So they kept changing, they kept going. And I think that's the important thing, is that a lot of the sustainable, and actually like the SMEs, 90% of the SMEs, there's 400 million SMEs. If these SMEs just learn how to use these tools, they can actually make business that pays their bills. And most of these people live with $2 to $10 per day, maximum probably. So that means we can solve a lot of problems for the world economy with a bit of intelligence on these things.
You ended quickly then. I was loving it. So that narrative, what is that narrative, right? I'm just curious as to how you think that starts, right? And I know we're going a little bit off topic, but it's a fun conversation. I think the audience is hopefully going to be engaged. Education, mentorship, absolutely. But I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually, to be honest, I think looking at what Draper University, if I look at your programs, this is what the world needs, especially entrepreneurship. So for instance, actually, I did an interview in my podcast. There was with actually is right now $1 billion company. It was interesting what he said, is that in the end of the day, there's a narrative of 9-to-5 job. Okay. And the 9-to-5 job doesn't exist anymore, but people have that narrative. So I think there's a perception of what is an entrepreneur, point one. And then there's a perception of technology. And I think, of course, you and me are far ahead in the technology narrative, but most of the people have no talent. I remember that I only had a corporate job. And remember that my boss, we were managing around $20 million budget on media marketing. And ironically, our budget was bigger than, for instance, Portuguese was bigger than the Ministry of Culture of the entire country. And I started to realize, okay, my God, I can do much more impact here than I can do working in a country with 10 million people. But the thing that made me question and made me rethink things was, okay, there's a narrative around, okay, for instance, that boss of mine didn't want to put his name on Facebook because he was afraid of the data. He was a data geek. There was actually mining data from all our users and all our clients, but he was afraid of putting his data on Facebook. And I said, it's ridiculous, man. You are already in data. But I think it's this part is that there's a perception of technology that is, okay, people are afraid and they become cynical. That's the biggest challenge that we're facing right now. And when they become cynical, they don't want to learn. They start going to theories of conspiration. They start inventing the most silly stuff to get out of reality. And they invent a reality on their mind. And this is a big challenge that we have as humanity. I think it's one of the biggest challenges probably in history of humanity. And I love Harari because it touches a lot of these things. If you look at history, the humanity didn't change so much. The Homo sapiens the same for the last 50,000 years or 30,000 years. There was the jump in terms of our emotional intelligence and so forth. But in the end of the day, we still tribal, we still focus on our umbilical problems. And in the end of the day, if I put a narrative to 1,000 people that, okay, we have a problem, I repeat it and I go to social media, to YouTube, we become having a problem, even if the problem doesn't exist. And this is right now the biggest challenge that we have, I think, with our society, is that the Roman Empire destroyed because of bureaucracy and stupidity. And it was a great civilizational breakthrough. So I think all the civilizational breakthroughs normally come with the fear of humanity. So I think this kind of educational narrative is important, because the problem is that all happened with technologies that were very basic. Our technology right now, when it comes to AI and Metaverse technology, especially with AR, spatial computing, and 3D, I can create an avatar of yours, integrate a bit of data of yours from social media, and it starts being accurate about your life. And then if I hack a bit to some of your apps, I'll start predicting what's your lifespan. I can do all of this in the space of 1 week or two. I just need a data scientist. And this is actually
Hey, we're friends. We're friends, right?
And actually, anyone will be able to create a digital twin of themselves in the next 6 months to 1 year with very big precision, with a small app. For instance, I can scan my body and put it in some place. So these things are happening right now. So it's not in 10 years, it's now. When people say math is wrong, actually Mark Zuckerberg is right. It's actually completely right to focus on Metaverse. The challenge is that he did it inside of Facebook. So he destroyed Facebook. He should have done it as a separate company and working in a separate unit instead of trying to put everything in the same ball. So actually from a shareholder perspective. And of course, as well, he is wrong in the sense that he wants to do it in the controllable way. You cannot control until a certain point you need to open. Okay, and that's what this is problem. So I think definitely this is for me the biggest challenge, but as well the biggest opportunity, because if we solve these problems, we can actually create billions of dollars of business. But of course, we need to be realistic and as well being very practical on the sense of utility. I think the biggest challenge with the blockchain industry is that it's been spending much more time on the speculation part than actually education and on case studies that work. And actually, I see this public is in the sense that I'm very frustrated that most of the blockchain platforms, and some of them, I raise some money, but not much, but some people raise billions of dollars and they have nothing that works. There's a shame on them. I'm sorry, please build products that work. Okay, and that's the biggest challenge. If you can't really focus on speculation, of course you're going to create a lot of problems. And it's another weapon of mass destruction. Okay, then we're not different from the problems of the centralized technologies. So I believe that this narrative and sense of practicality or utility is the most important thing. I don't care about the political parts. Of course, I have my own civical opinions, but it's more about utility. And I think this is where we need to focus. And that's what education, I think Draper University is doing that fantastic work, because it's about being an entrepreneur. It is for life. This kind of education is for life. I'm learning every day. Okay, and I have to learn with you, with the people who do this in these interactions. We have to keep learning. And that's the challenge. Most of the people, they want to work 9 to 5 and they think you don't need to continue learning. Okay, you go to your life and you go to your bubble and you just get out of reality, which is what most of people do. And in the past we had religion, but religion we had a sense of okay, process. Right now we don't have process. So that means very easily you get in a bubble. For instance, I remember that even very sophisticated, when there was the 5G hoax, there was a lot of people, even in my network, that they saw very well done videos on the internet. And they start believing, oh my God, 5G is going to kill us all. and all stuff. I said, no, man, come on. Electricity, you go to the beginning of the 19th century, the White House, when they put electricity in the White House, the president panicked and went out of the White House. People forget that. When the internet started, CNN said the internet is just a fad. Come on, it was CNN and Business Insider and so forth. Not Business Insider, I forgot right now. One of the companies that was actually acquired by Bloomberg. So this is kind of, come on, it's going to be much, but it's going to be on steroids. And that's the part that we need to be prepared.
Absolutely. Final question, I suppose, and thank you very much for being so generous with your time. I've loved the chat. What's next? What's next for you? A lot to be excited about, but what's the main thing, or what's next?
Well, I'm very excited with the Metaverse technology. I became so I think especially Metaverse and AI, it's my crazy passion with blockchain. But I think what I'm trying to do is making it really cool. So for instance, at the moment, I'm very cool with my team, to be honest. It took me 10 years to nail the team, but I have a team that is at my level in terms of thinking ahead. And the thing is that we managed to do hyper realistic buildings, hyper realistic avatars. And at the moment, what I'm excited is that this is really cool stuff. My daughter is excited with my work. My children are excited, my teenagers, my son and my stepson. They look at me, at least they might say, okay, I'm still boring as the father, but they look at me, okay, you're doing cool stuff. And the thing is that this is really cool, what is happening right now. So the point is, okay, let's make sure that this can be used to make business. Okay, and for instance, my son is one of the top universities in the world. And he got right now obsessed about NFTs, but he didn't have a clue about Metaverse. And he's actually studying film. Come on, man. For university, one of the top, I'm not mentioning names, one of the top universities in the world has no program, is in the second year for Metaverse. And for instance, my stepson is in robotics. They don't learn anything about this. That's the problem. Okay, if you're in robotics, you're not learning about spatial computing, AI integration with sensors and all these things. So I think this is the next step, is really making sure these technologies can actually make better use of our present challenges and really getting it in the right direction. And I think that level, I think is where people like you guys, what you're doing at Draper University, and as well, I'm obliging everyone in at least my family direct, is the sense of entrepreneurship. This is the next more important thing. And then, of course, on the technology, definitely AI and Metaverse, especially I've become obsessed about AGI. For instance, at the moment, I'm working a lot in digital twin technology related with Metaverse, which I think is going to be the biggest thing, because it's not so much about Ready Player One experience. That is the wrong part. It's much more about Star Wars or Star Trek. Actually, more Star Trek. Star Wars, I love Star Wars, but it's too much on the negative side of the Dark Force. But in a sense, if you look at the models of Star Trek and even Star Wars with the holograms, all of this is possible now. If we apply this to go to a museum, for instance, I was in Louvre, I was thinking, I can't solve Louvre problem of any other museum, because it's cool. Instead of, for instance, if I go to a museum like Louvre, I will have to walk probably 3 kilometers. And in order to find the pieces I want, I will have to go for a lot of other ones that I don't want to do. So unless I study everything and I'll discuss the metrics where it is, it's a nightmare. This is Louvre, which is one of the top, most sophisticated museums in the world. But if I look at a church, a museum, a city, I want to find some really cool stuff. So if I get some kind of logical stuff that allows me, this is for me the present and the future. And the AI is more about creating data that allows me to have better predictions to help me improving my process and my productivity, instead of just creating automation craziness. And that's what I wrote about the book, Reinventing Nations for AR. That was used actually by the Malaysian government to create Malaysia 5.0, which was a concept that I built for them. And I believe that part, okay, the narrative was not implemented in reality, but at least they're conscious about it and they put it political and public. And this is what I did. I did it actually, I was not paid for that, which was probably not good for me, but at least I know that, okay, it's something that at least people are aware of it. And this is the kind of things that I think Draper University, I'm very proud to be here with you guys, is what you're doing. And this sense of education of entrepreneurship is super important, because the Metaverse is really going to be massive disruptive if you use it for wrong things. And like I said, if I can do these things, what I'm saying, I'm not science fiction. I can in fact create an avatar of yours, integrate data from your social media feeds, start putting an AI bot that understands what you do. And then if I get geolocation about how much you move, I can get your health. I can do this in a mass scale. thanks God, I'm not telling this to governments and some bad people, but you know what I can do? If I can do this, imagine what a psychotic guy can do. And I'm not a psychotic, I hope not, but I'm more a person that wants to learn and teach. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we have to put a disclaimer on this one. But thank you very much. Thanks for giving Draper you such a great plug. Loved the conversation, and yeah, best of luck with everything, Dinis.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.
Thank you for joining Dream Pushers. Inspired. Subscribe and share. With dedication, craft your legacy. Push boundaries.